For years, Discovery have been encouraging everyone to make your world bigger. And that is exactly what I'm now doing.
And then also, of course, you had to be able to serve ice cream before and after the event, and that was really the nub of the problem.
One moment, he was in the workshop, sleeves rolled up and big orange gloves ready to make magic happen. The next, he was gone. No farewell episode, no teary goodbye handshake, not even a cheeky last joke from Mike Brewer, just silence. Edd China, the man who turned Wheeler Dealers into more than just a car flipping show, had walked away, and fans were left reeling. It wasn't just that Edd left, it was how he left. For 14 years, he had been the calm counterbalance to Mike's loud energy. While Mike hustled bargains from backstreet garages, Edd was the one who got down on the floor, pulling apart engines bolt by bolt and teaching a generation how to fix cars in plain English. He wasn't just showing repairs, he was slowing time down, making the impossible feel possible. That was the heart of Wheeler Dealers, and suddenly it was gone. Theories spread like wildfire. Was it money? A fallout with Mike? Pressure from Discovery and Velocity, who now owned the show? Or something darker behind the cameras? Everyone had a version of the story, but the truth was tangled between edits, contracts, and egos. Even today, years after that infamous YouTube announcement, fans still argue about what really happened. So what went down between Edd China and Wheeler Dealers? To answer that, we need to rewind. Back to the early 2000s, when two very different men stepped into a tiny London workshop with a single camera and unknowingly built one of the most beloved car shows of all time. The year was 2003. Reality TV was booming, but the car world hadn't quite found its sweet spot. Then along came Wheeler Dealers. The premise was simple: buy a used car, fix it, flip it for profit. But the magic wasn't in the format, it was in the chemistry of its two stars. Mike Brewer was the deal maker, loud, cheeky, and always hustling. He could sniff out a bargain in a scrapyard and talk his way into discounts that seemed impossible. Part salesman, part entertainer, Mike kept the energy high and the profits, at least on paper, flowing. Beside him stood Edd China, tall, calm, and patient. He wasn't just fixing cars, he was teaching. While other shows skimmed over repairs and flashy montages, Edd took time. He explained what a seized brake caliper actually meant. He showed how to replace a head gasket without fear. His big orange gloves became a symbol of accessibility, a promise that anyone, even a weekend tinkerer, could learn alongside him. The dynamic worked. Viewers didn't just see cars being transformed, they understood the process, and they loved it. Fan mail poured in from Brazil to Bahrain, praising the show for giving ordinary people the confidence to pick up a spanner. By the 5th season, Wheeler Dealers was airing in over 100 countries. It wasn't just another car show anymore, it was global television gold. As the show grew, so did the ambition. By season 9, the producers packed the whole crew off to California. Bigger audience, bigger workshop, bigger cars. Suddenly, Edd and Mike weren't just fixing British classics like Minis and MGs, they were tackling Ford Mustangs, DeLoreans, and Camaros. The move looked like a dream, but as fans would later discover, this was the beginning of the cracks that would split the show apart. California was sunshine, muscle cars, and endless possibilities. But behind the palm trees, the move to the US changed everything. Wheeler Dealers was now on Velocity, Discovery's US network, and with it came new rules. Episodes had to be faster, repairs had to be shorter, cars had to be flashier. What used to be a 10-minute walkthrough of an engine rebuild was suddenly compressed into a 30-second montage. Producers paced the workshop floor with clipboards, timing every scene. Sponsors wanted their products front and center. Viewers were expected to keep up, even if entire lessons disappeared on the editing floor. For Edd, this was torture. Teaching was the reason he was there. Every cut felt like ripping pages out of the guidebook he'd spent years building. He argued, pushed, even begged for longer repair segments. Mike, stuck in the middle, tried to smooth things over. He shook hands with sponsors, reassured Edd, and told the network he'd keep things lively, but the gap kept growing. Fans noticed too. Online forums filled with complaints. Why are the jobs so rushed? Where are the detailed steps? This isn't the same show anymore. Ratings were steady, but the soul of the series was slipping away. Meanwhile, the pressure inside the workshop was building like steam in a whistling kettle. Long hours, quick turnarounds, and a crew stretched thin. Edd stayed late, filming extra close-ups in the hope editors would use them. Most ended up on the cutting room floor. He knew what was coming, and he wasn't sure he could live with it. By 2016, the tension was impossible to ignore. Wheeler Dealers was still shining on screen, but behind the cameras, the partnership that built the show was starting to unravel, and soon, Edd would make a choice that shocked the entire automotive world. March 21st, 2017. A 6-minute YouTube video dropped onto Edd China's personal channel, and the car world hasn't been the same since. The title was plain: "I'm leaving Wheeler Dealers." No clickbait, no dramatic music, just Edd, sitting at a desk, orange gloves on, looking straight into the camera. For the first time, fans heard his side of the story. The network, he explained, wanted to reduce the detailed repairs. They wanted the show to be faster, cheaper, more entertainment than education. Edd disagreed. For him, Wheeler Dealers was never about quick cuts. It was about teaching, demystifying, and showing every nut and bolt. "That's not a direction I can support," he said, calm but firm. And with that, he announced he was walking away. The reaction was explosive. Within hours, the video was everywhere. Forums, car blogs, Twitter feeds. Fans clipped quotes, circled screenshots, and debated every word. Many cheered Edd for standing by his principles. Others demanded answers from Mike Brewer. Why hadn't he fought harder? Did he side with the network over his partner? Mike tried to respond quickly, tweeting that he loved Edd like a brother and had begged producers to keep the longer repair scenes. But the tide was already against him. In the frenzy of social media, Brewer became the villain. Hate mail poured in. Some fans even sent threats that dragged his teenage daughter into the mess. The backlash was so intense that Mike contacted the police, admitting later that the stress nearly broke him. Even Edd, horrified by what was happening, urged fans to stop attacking Mike. But the internet isn't easy to calm once the fire starts. Sponsors pulled back. Discovery released a vague statement promising that Wheeler Dealers would continue, evolving while staying true to its roots. Then, in the middle of the storm, they announced Edd's replacement, Ant Anstead, a charismatic former cop turned mechanic with a knack for quick builds. Some fans were curious. Others swore they'd never watch again. One thing was certain: the original duo that made Wheeler Dealers special was gone, and for many viewers, the show would never be the same. When Ant Anstead first walked into the workshop, he knew he had enormous shoes to fill. The first episode with him featured a bright blue Mustang, a gearbox swap, and plenty of camera-friendly action. Ant's style was fast, witty, and energetic. The network hoped he would win over skeptical fans. And for a while, it worked. Viewers who loved quick transformations and flashy reveals enjoyed the fresh pace. But for the hardcore fans, the ones who paused their DVRs to follow Edd's tutorials step by step, something was missing. They asked, how exactly did he line up that clutch? Where's the detail? Ant tried to bridge the gap. He filmed extra clips explaining tricky jobs and uploaded some online, but most never made it past the editors. The divide in the fan base grew sharper. Ratings held steady, but Wheeler Dealers now lived in two worlds: those who wanted fast entertainment and those who longed for Edd's slow, methodical teaching. By 2020, Ant left the show to return to the UK for family reasons. In his place came Mark Elvis Priestley, a former McLaren F1 mechanic. With his sharp skills and laid-back humor, Elvis brought credibility and a new energy. The show, now back in a British workshop, continued into its 20th season. And while it still attracted millions of viewers, every new mechanic carried the same burden, being compared to Edd China. Meanwhile, Edd wasn't idle. In 2020, he launched Edd China's Workshop Diaries on YouTube. Gone were the sponsors, the strict schedules, the clipped edits. Instead, viewers got the unfiltered Edd, explaining, sketching on whiteboards, and showing every step in detail. One week he revived a Range Rover. The next, he electrified a 1960s milk float. Fans loved it. They called it the true spirit of Wheeler Dealers. Within 10 episodes, his channel had over 500,000 subscribers. In many ways, the split had created two different shows. Wheeler Dealers became slicker, faster, more global. Edd's Diaries became slower, deeper, and more authentic. Both had their audiences, but only one still carried the heart of what the original fans remembered. For years, fans begged for a reunion, and though both men insisted they'd moved on, neither slammed the door shut completely. Mike Brewer would drop hints in interviews. "Never say never, my phone still works." Edd would smile in live streams and say, "Only if we can show every nut and bolt, not a yes, but not a no either." Then came 2024. At the NEC Classic Motor Show in Birmingham, Mike and Edd appeared on the same stage for the first time in 7 years. They weren't co-hosting, but the brief backstage meeting was enough. A photo of them smiling together hit Twitter, and fans went wild. Soon after, Mike sent Edd a birthday tweet. "Have a great one, mate. Hope to share a brew soon." Edd liked it with a thumbs up emoji. To longtime viewers, these small gestures felt like oil on a rusty hinge. In the meantime, rumors swirled. Some claimed Discovery had pitched a reunion road trip, 10 cars, 10 countries, one last handshake. Others said the BBC wanted them for a new EV conversion series. Nothing ever materialized, but the chatter never really stopped. Every small interaction between Mike and Edd reignited speculation. Away from the gossip, both men stayed busy. Mike kept Wheeler Dealers alive, filming new episodes with Elvis and teasing the biggest profit we've ever made. Edd pushed into experimental projects, tinkering with hydrogen-powered taxis and alternative fuels. Their paths had diverged, but they remained connected in the eyes of fans. And that's the enduring legacy of Wheeler Dealers. It wasn't just about flipping cars. It was about a bigger question. How much can you cut before the heart of something disappears? Edd chose principle over compromise. Mike chose loyalty to a brand, a crew, and a global audience. Both choices carried weight. Both required sacrifice. So, will the handshake ever return? Maybe. Money talks, but trust talks louder. If there ever comes a time when the balance between education and entertainment feels right, those bright workshop lamps might flicker on again for both men. Until then, the story sits in idle, engine warm, waiting for the next green light. By the time the dust settled, Wheeler Dealers had become two very different visions of the same dream. On one hand, Mike Brewer and his new co-hosts kept the TV machine rolling. Slick editing, fast flips, and a show designed to keep sponsors happy while still entertaining millions. On the other hand, Edd China built his own lane. Long-form YouTube tutorials, quirky engineering projects, and the kind of unfiltered detail that first made fans fall in love with him. What's fascinating is that both paths worked. Wheeler Dealers remains one of the longest-running car shows in history, still pulling in strong ratings after 2 decades. Meanwhile, Edd's Workshop Diaries has carved out its own loyal audience, proof that passion and detail can thrive in the digital age without a giant network budget. Together, they represent a bigger truth about modern media. TV is a compromise. Deadlines, sponsors, schedules. Online platforms are freedom, slower, rawer, and closer to the creator's vision. For car enthusiasts, this split gave them a choice. Do you want quick entertainment, or do you want slow education? Do you want the profit chase, or the nuts and bolts detail? Thanks to Mike and Edd, both exist. It's also a reminder that creative partnerships don't have to end in bitterness. Even after years apart, the respect between them is still there. The smiles at NEC Classic, the casual birthday tweets, the refusal from either man to fully shut the door on a reunion, all of it shows that the story isn't over. It's just idling, waiting for the right conditions. And maybe that's why fans are still obsessed, because Wheeler Dealers were never just about cars. It was about trust, teaching, and two very different men proving that passion can take rusty old metal and make it shine again. So what really went down between Edd China and Wheeler Dealers? At its core, it was a clash of values: passion versus profit, teaching versus television, detail versus speed. Edd refused to compromise his style. Mike refused to abandon a show that employed dozens of people and entertained millions. Both stood their ground. Both paid a price. The result? A split that broke the internet, divided fans, and yet somehow gave the car world twice as much to love. Because now, whether you're watching Mike haggle over a Porsche or Edd explain how to rebuild a gearbox, the spirit of Wheeler Dealers lives on. And the biggest question still hangs in the air. Will the famous handshake ever return? Maybe it will take a special anniversary, maybe a charity build, maybe just two old friends deciding the world deserves one more ride together. Or maybe they're both happier driving their own roads, content to wave at each other across the highway. In the end, that might be the real legacy of Wheeler Dealers, showing us that passion comes in many forms, and no matter how the paths diverge, the love of cars and the people who bring them back to life will always unite us. So the story of Edd China and Mike Brewer isn't finished. It's just waiting for the next green light. The only question left is, when it comes, will you be watching?